feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take it.
Hello and welcome to Lounge with Legends. I'm very sad to announce that James is not here. He missed LD. Oh shit, he's here. Okay, all right. So James is actually here. We're on a love seat.
We're live. We're
on a love seat. It's kind of weird. We're here in DC together at a WeWork. Thanks to Bunker Labs. Bunker Labs is an amazing. I'm going to put them up here. Because can they see it if I put it up here? Thanks to Bunker Labs. This is like we're in our final weeks of the Veteran and Residence Program. We graduate on the 1st of June. We've got our Veteran and Residence closing. I'm going to check it out. It's in the comments already. Register 23 cities, 400 entrepreneurs. We're going to be pitching our ideas. You got to register. Check it out. It is absolutely amazing, and I'm sad to see this Veteran and Residence coming to a close. But it's a wonderful opportunity. And James is up here because tonight we're going to be at the Army Museum, right?
I've never been, but yes,
it will be. We're there for our Medal of Honor. What did David Vardaman call it yesterday? The living legends or legacy of giving. It's going to be an amazing event. So many amazing people are going to be there today. But man, it has just been a crazy 2 days since you flew in yesterday.
I tell you what, yesterday got up at 3 something to leave RDU to get here. But yesterday was a fun day of travel. It was a fun day. But let's just say anything that could go wrong did go wrong once I landed. So everything in the plane was great, but once I landed, somebody may or may not have got lost a few times.
No, that wasn't lost. That was just fine. James basically got introduced to DC traffic, and Marty finding new and inventive ways to get around DC traffic, and also my Italian driving in DC traffic in a little Fiat 500. So I may or may not have cut across 3 lanes of traffic in like 500 feet.
So more like 250 feet.
And said a few Italian words while I did it. But
yes.
It's been amazing. We're excited. What else? Oh, next week. Holy crap. Next week we're going to be in Orlando at PodFest. Again, another great time. I'll be stuck with this guy. So we're going to be down there at PodFest speaking at the military con portion of PodFest. Our topic is shut the fear up and just basically tell your story. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be so many great veterans there. So, and before I forget, you almost let me forget.
I didn't let you forget.
Happy birthday to my cousin, Chrissy.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I think she just turned 21. So happy birthday, cuz. San Antonio representing. Man, it's been amazing. I can't believe she's 21. This is crazy. But happy birthday, cuz. What else is going on?
Getting ready for an amazing episode of Lounge with Legends. We got a real legend coming in today. Not that we have before, but this one's real special. Just the power of meeting folks out there that you really don't know who they were. To be honest, I knew who this person was because he may or may not have been on TV and I'd see him every night. But anyway, bottom line is it was just amazing just to know that these folks are real people. They're like you and I, and it was amazing to see how humble and giving our legend is today, and just how much he's helped us grow and share our story and get our message out.
All the happy birthdays are coming in to cousin Chris. No, absolutely. I mean, when you told me who he was, and I Googled, and I was like, who is it? I was like, oh wow, yeah, this guy is a legend. And so
I think we need to get him to start doing a evergreening his, like, how to be a news reporter and give lessons and life lessons on how to do that. He could probably help me with my questioning skills, because my favorite question is, if not now, when? If not you, who? Isn't that my favorite question?
I think that is. I think why this book? Why now?
That's it.
I think that's a great question. It's so hard hitting. So enough about us. Let's bring him on. Are you ready?
Let's go.
You see, we're on the couch, and I'm trying to keep in 6 feet distance, but it's not working.
6 inches.
It's like 6 inches. Yeah, we're trying to do COVID here in DC. The shit's not working. So we're out of here. Welcome, Jonah, man. This is exciting. A true legend.
Guys, the pleasure's all mine. What a amazing honor to be sitting here virtually with you, to be in your presence, even if it's through a screen, just to have and share this time in this moment.
American hero. We're putting
awesome.
that up there. Yeah. So you had the honor of interviewing James once before.
James and I go way back, and we talk about the role of a reporter, right? And being communicators and being leaders. It's about being out there in the community, and no matter where you are, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what someone's story is going to be. And I'm in the gym, because my self-esteem was getting a little too high that week, I think. So I needed to go, and I see this big bruising, a veteran there with a shoulder bigger than my head. And I don't know, I think I was, James, you have to remind me, was I already working on a story? And I said, hey, I noticed you're a veteran. First of all, thank you for your service. And I just kind of said, do you mind me asking about this? And I think that's when you and I just started talking. And then we kept in touch because I knew the business you were in. And then we worked on another couple of veteran stories. And because I knew you were a veteran, I knew you were just someone to put in the Rolodex. And I knew if whatever I was working on maybe didn't have to do with you, you knew somebody or could connect me with a network. And that's how it works. And it's all about initiative. I mean, if I tell people, if you're shy, this is not the business for you. Journalism is not the business for you.
Wow.
And that was it. It was just initiative to shamelessly go up and say hi to somebody.
Yeah, it was. And the crazy thing is, now that was pre-bicep tears. I've ruptured both my biceps. I don't even lift anymore. So now I'm like half the size I was. But it was just the thing that resonated with me was when you came up and approached me. It wasn't anything creepy or anything. It was just like, hey, look, I really want to help some veterans. I'm doing a story on this, and it was just like, okay, let me figure out a way that I could, facilitate something. And basically that's how we connected you to Juan Zulaga, and you were able to do an amazing story with Juan and his things and his struggles. Because, the thing that I love about what you do is you're sharing real life. It's not, it's not always like we see on, I hate to say Instagram and Facebook. It's not all rosy all the time. Sometimes we have to actually be transparent and honest. And that's what I've always appreciated about your reporting. It's always transparent and honest. And that's why.
And you're trying to humanize people. You're trying to validate them. You're trying to acknowledge them. And if you think about you as a viewer, it's a lot easier to kind of recognize and identify with a story if there's a name, if there's a face, if there's a smile, if there's a struggle, something else where, again, you can kind of tie and latch onto it. Right. So, we could talk about PTSD. Well, that's a big macro thing, but let's talk about, Sergeant Smith, who just came back from, 2 tours in the Middle East. You get to know him, you get to know his background. It's a lot easier to recognize that story when you hear someone personally than just saying, oh, PTSD is really bad, or PTSD is taking lives. You really want to humanize people, and you want to have those stories resonate, especially with much of America who don't know enough to care, don't know enough to ask a question, and may not even be kind of, I don't want to say that they're tone deaf, but they're just not, they don't have the recognition. They don't know how to even approach it. It's not their fault they don't know. They're just so detached that we have to find a way to build that bridge.
I think we kind of walked right into this before. Let's back up here. So who is Jonah? Can you introduce, because you know him. I don't know if the viewers know him yet. So
and you got Mr. Mike, looks like Barkley is here. Hello, Barkley.
So you said you already knew who Jonah Kaplan was. So who was he when you met him?
Well, for me, it was just about, you always look at folks that you look for as a reporter on TV, on news, to get information, and you got to, know and trust them. And I felt like with Jonah, he was always one that you could always trust. Because, there's a lot of times with any profession, you get a bad representation, bad label sometimes, and somebody thinks that you might be making stories up. But one thing, like I said, I met him. He was a Raleigh local news reporter, and did amazing stories in the Raleigh local area, and just, was able to follow his path, sharing other people's stories, and then basically reporting the facts. And that's how I met Jonah, through at that time he was with ABC 11 local news in Raleigh.
So you already knew who he was. So Jonah, you sought him out. It wasn't him in a skinny shirt trying to squeeze some biceps up next to you because you were famous.
Happily married. Thank you very much. It was, yeah. So for the last, 5.5 years, I was a political investigative reporter at the ABC station here in Raleigh. And I've kind of been doing a lot of political and investigative reporting for the last 15 years in different parts of the country. And so I was on assignment here. And yeah, again, we were just kind of in the gym, and I had been working on some projects. And again, a lot of times it's cold calls. And so I think he was wearing an Army shirt, or he had a bag that I recognized, that only, servicemen and women would carry. And that's when I just approached him. And always thank you for your service. Appreciate everything you did for us. And then, and I don't just mean that in a Larry David sense. Thank you, but really, I mean, I mean that. But it was an icebreaker too. Again, it's about validating and acknowledging. And I think that in my profession, in journalism, it's a lot like police in the sense that, and just stay with me on this metaphor, when one police officer does something bad, it reflects poorly on the entire industry. Mm-hmm. One bad police officer and everyone wants to defund the police. Everyone wants to, they're horrible, they're terrible. There's not one good cop out there. They're all terrible. Well, for journalism, there's one bad reporter. There's one bad personality on TV that's not even a reporter, but is on a 24-hour news network. And all of a sudden, we're all fake news. We're all these horrible, objectionable people that are only interested in one version of truth, who don't care about half the country. And I'm trying to be out there and say, no, that's not me. I can't speak for others in the business, but I can only speak on my work. And here's what I do. And here's my philosophy. And here's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to empower viewers with information to make better decisions for their lives. I'm trying to give them a well-rounded perspective and context into things, not to tell them what's good, not bad, not to tell them what's important, what's not important, not to tell them which side is right, which side is wrong. It's to tell them, here's the situation. It's up to you how you want to judge. If I interview a military commander, if I interview a politician, if I interview a company CEO, I'm not there to antagonize them. I'm not there to challenge their authority. I'm there as a tool to ask questions on behalf of viewers, to enable them to communicate their thoughts, their ideas, their struggles, their challenges, their assignments to a greater audience. And let's say I talk with a politician, the politician decides not to answer that question. I would argue it's not my job to, yes, there's a time and a place to maybe push them a little harder or peel the onion back, but viewers, hopefully, I don't have to point them. They can see very well for themselves if that person is not answering the question. I don't need to, belittle them. I don't need to attack them for not answering the question. It's their prerogative whether or not they want to answer the question. And it's up to you, the voter, how you want to evaluate that answer or non-answer and how that matters to you.
So you're like the modern day version of the Joe Friday, just the facts, ma'am.
It's what it should be. It's what it should be. Now, there should be some common standards. There should be some foundations that we go on. I'm not going to go up to a Russian and be like, so tell me, why is it worth, massacring Ukrainians? I think we can all agree what side we're on, right? But I don't think it's wrong to ask a question where, listen, there's this much money to going to Ukraine. Where is that money coming from? How do we know it's being spent on why is it worth it for our taxpayer dollars? That's not an unfair question. That's not an unfair question. I'm not about to go up to, at a KKK rally and say, please tell me, share your perspective on their great replacement theory. I'm not trying to give a platform to people who don't deserve one necessarily. And I know that's a very fine line of who deserves one and who doesn't. But there should be some foundations for us, collective standards for us as Americans. And yes, it's a balance. But overall, I think 98% of the country is on a level playing field, and we should treat it as that.
Absolutely. Now, this is interesting so I want to ask to take one of James' questions. Why journalism? Why now? But no, why journalism? What was that calling? Because originally you got into sports, and now you're in this hard hitting stuff. So
that's a great question, by the way. Just go ahead.
Yeah. And I like this, by the way, because usually it's my job to ask the questions. So every once in a while, to have it thrown back at me, it's kind of fun. Why this? It's kind of something I fell into. I mean, in high school, I loved sports and I liked news. I remember watching. These are when cable news started. I went to high school in the late '90s, early 2000s, or early aughts. Not to age you guys or anything, but I remember just being into it, but yes, huge sports fan. And I always thought, and I was a bit of a performer. I liked, I did theater in high school and stuff. And so I thought, I'll be a sports broadcaster and let's see how that goes. And I don't know. I worked at ESPN. I got an internship and I worked a lot of late nights with production crews I went to school in Boston. So Celtics and Bruins games. And I don't know. I started working in sports, and it was like seeing the wizard behind the curtain almost, where it wasn't as maybe special as I thought it was. And I didn't like also not. I want to wear my jersey. I want to have my. I used to have these great rituals. I'd have a freezer full of frozen mugs, and I'd want my chicken wings, and I would sit. I couldn't do that if you're working. I mean, I miss that. I want to go to games. I want to be with my friends, and. And then I was working in Texas. I got my first job on air in a place called Wichita Falls, Texas. If there's any airmen, on the program today or watching, Shepherd Air Force Base, Altus Air Force Base, beautiful if you like concrete. I mean, just stunning if you like flat stone concrete cinder blocks. Just beautiful country. But I got exposed to them and Fort Sill in Oklahoma. And there was something about working working for the better good of things. And I thought, if I have these talents, if I have this gift that God's given me to be able to communicate, let's do it for something that's not that sports isn't important, but maybe something with a little more depth, maybe we're something we can make more positive difference.
Oh, that's interesting, because you were like in Boston and then you wound up in some really hot spots, like hot spots. So those that aren't tracking, Wichita Falls, Texas, I used to do this bike race called the Hotter Than Hell
100.
I used to do that every
I'm
year.
just curious what year you were there, because I'm really going to laugh if you and I were
pretty old.
I'm pretty old. Probably way before your time.
The Hotter Than Hell 100. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do it in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Because I'm from Texas. So, but it would get up there in the literally in the hundreds to like 127 or something, like 118.
Brutal.
It was just, to make matters worse, one year I did it and I got, not only was it hot, but I also got stung by bees. Maybe even worse in the
look, I can't speak for other parts of journalism, but at least in broadcast journalism, look, you're not going to start in New York. You're not going to start on CNN. You're not going to start in Los Angeles, or Houston, or Dallas. You have to start in the small markets. You have to start in a place where you can make mistakes. Hi, Barky. He's from Texas, by the way. I thought he heard us talking about it. So you have to do that, whereas like a doctor, you go to medical school, you go to residency, and then, you become you go into the army. You start an infantry, and then you work your way up into the different, brigades and different officer ranks if you want to go to that route. So TV, you have to go to the small market. So I started in Wichita Falls, Texas. And I spent a year there. Then I went to Springfield, Missouri, which is right near Fort Leonard Wood. Another great place.
Right. So is that where the passion for the veteran kind of started? Yeah.
And my grandfathers of blessed memory were in the military. My grandfather Harold Masnitsky was in the Navy. My grandfather Dr. Harry Kaplan was a physician in the U.S. Army. And then my brother got into the military. He just always kind of loved that stuff. But I remember going to a commissioning of a ship in Philadelphia with my grandfather, and we saw the whole thing, and we loved that. And visited. I used to go with him to see the submarines, and but because I was in such military, I think you're right. By being in those first towns, which were so military centric. Wichita Falls, where it was Fort Sill, where it was Shepherd, where it was Altus. And I went to all those places many times. And then in Springfield, where I went to Fort Leonard Wood. And of course, that's a huge MP, place. And that's where I first got to see deployments and homecoming ceremonies. And in Texas too, just to backtrack, I remember because I was away from my family. I mean, in many ways, I grew up in the Northeast. They called me Yankee Bastard down there, and so I actually would do these things where, like on Thanksgiving, I was with other military, and I would go to kind of other military households because we wanted to be with family, and people would welcome us to their homes. So I was very much introduced to that lifestyle, to the military, the PX. And posts and bases and that's where I got to. So yes, and then that's where I got turned on to different veterans issues.
Right. Yeah, I think I didn't realize that's not normal. I guess because growing up, if there were people that weren't with their families, we would bring them home for Thanksgiving,
right?
Because we're family. It's military family. We would bring home airmen or whatever, and they'd have Thanksgiving with us. And, find out that's not normal, I guess, in America. So
there was some fun time, and that was a unique experience for me. So, something like I'm Jewish, right? And I observe Jewish dietary laws, keep kosher. So I don't eat, pork. I don't eat shellfish. And I remember going to this home for Thanksgiving, and they were roasting the turkey with bacon. And I didn't want to offend them, so I ended up eating it. I didn't eat the bacon, but it's like, okay, I'm really in foreign territory now. This is like studying abroad for me. I didn't want to, but those experiences, they really they made me not just a better journalist, but a better individual, because I think for all of us, it's challenging your comfort zone. And that helps you define yourself and find out what's important to you. Because when you're able to be in a place where no one knows you and no one has any idea of you, and they don't know your past, they don't know your background, there's no mutual friends, you literally can be whoever you want to be. And then as they start to ask you questions, when you start to again, you start to define yourself in a way you want to. And with that conviction, you can then double down on your priorities and your values and your sense of self. And so that was very healthy for me. And that grounds you. And so for those veterans out there, especially making these transitions, from military life, going back into civilian life, you should feel liberated. Yes, it's scary. It's very scary. And it's a sense of freedom that, you haven't had before. But I would say embrace it and don't be afraid of it, but take it as an opportunity to find yourself and to define yourself, because that is going to give you solid footing.
Yeah,
that's great advice.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we talk about it a lot. Is some of the things that make us unique is the transition and the transformation, and the fact that we get an opportunity when you get out of the military. It's very unique because you get a chance to redefine yourself and really get to look and say, you know what, I get to redefine who I'm going to be. So based on who you are, but talk about redefining yourself. Again, you went from sports to now you're all in his heart.
And from the Northeast, a quote unquote coastal elite, to flyover states, middle America, where no one. So I was in Texas and then Missouri, Wisconsin, now North Carolina. Soon I'm going to move back to the Midwest. It's a lot, and it's definitely some peaks and valleys, but that was, I think you recognize once you find that kind of that footing again, and I say, don't be shy. Okay, what's the worst he's going to say? No. All right, so you walk away, all right, so I go up to James. Hey, can you help? He says no. Okay, I go to the next guy. You just have to, I don't know, it's not even necessarily be over the fear of rejection, because I definitely got rejected by plenty of girls at all these places. Happily married now. But it's a different kind of, it's not rejection. It's being able to know that, okay, if that opportunity is not there, there's going to be another one. And it's just to keep going. And that I think is where also you challenge the comfort zone. It's uncomfortable. It's different. It's something you don't recognize. I've never been here before. I've never dealt with this. What are they going to think of me? Just put yourself out there. And it's a cliff, but I don't know, God is not going to put you in a position that you're not prepared for.
Absolutely right.
You're not in that.
It's about reframing, naming your fear and rejecting it, and understanding, reframing perspective.
Yes.
And if you look at it and think about it, successful people have failed more than unsuccessful people.
I could make a wallpaper of all the rejection letters, the jobs I never got, all the times, not the times I've been written up, but criticizing email, whatever, viewer comments, that would get me down. And at first, they did it. I remember when I first, because, you have to, but it's a process, but you're going to be better off for it. You really will. I've never been in so yes, I've done work with the military, but I've never been in the military. I've never done a boot camp. I've never been deployed. I've never been on assignment. I've never lived in a tent or anything. I've never done that.
Right.
But what I can surmise is, though, those experiences can help you. Use them, embrace them, and learn from them, and let that ground you. If you were staring Al-Qaeda in the face, and then you come back here and maybe a job's not working out, there are certain things worth stressing about, and a job is not one of them.
Right.
No, I've never been in war, but my PTSD comes from covering severe weather. And I was in Missouri when a tornado swept through Joplin, Missouri, and killed 158 people. It was on the ground for 6 miles, and it was a mile wide. And when I tell you the destruction, I can't, I close my eyes, I see the dark skies, and it really did look like a bomb went off. I mean, cars were crunched and twisted. The bark was removed on trees. Homes were just piles of wood. And those are images I still see in my mind. So when if my kids are crying in the back, or if I have a bad day of work, I start, okay, it's fine. It's fine. We're fine. We're fine. There are things worth getting stressed about. this is not one of them.
Yeah.
And I think once you have that grounding too, or meeting, I met, and you'll have to remind me. So yes, we talked to Juan Zuluaga, but then Angie, was it Baird is her last name? Her husband, I'm trying to remember the story. I'm going to look it up here because I want to get her name right, and her husband of blessed memory. Her husband, who the story about burn pits, and her husband had died later of cancer. And knowing that story grounds you. And that's the kind of things you take with you.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes to convey the perspective to others. Like Angie
Laird, her husband of blessed memory was Ray Laird, a North Carolina National Guardsman, helicopter electrician deployed to Iraq in 2004, died of pancreatic cancer in 2018 at the age of 40. So meeting her and hearing her tears and her family and meeting her kids, who lost their father. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, again, that grounds you. And so, yes, you should acknowledge the grief. You should acknowledge the trauma, but use that energy and let that build you and your sense of self.
Yeah. That's one thing I've never thought about from the perspective of as a news reporter covering a story. Just those traumatic events alone, being there, because you're there in those situations. I mean, how do you deal with that? You're dealing with those traumatic events. How do you get over that? Because I can just picture some of those stories that you've done that I've watched you cover. I don't know how you can just turn the switch off where you're no longer thinking about that story anymore, although you're actually probably never turn that off. I don't know.
That's a lot. And when you meet, let's say you're at a crime scene, you see homicide victims and you meet their family and you hear the cries and the wails and they're very tough. I mean, I still have nightmares about tornadoes, about severe weather. I think because of seeing that level of destruction. I mean, there were just, again, 150. This thing was it's not a tornado. It was a bulldozer. I mean, a mile wide. I will send you pictures afterwards I mean, take the pictures like you're seeing of Mariupol and the places in Ukraine that are just decimated. I'm really not trying to belittle what happened in Ukraine by any means. War is not the same as severe weather, but the destruction was so palpable. And it was, those are images you can't unremember. You can't get out of your mind. All I can say is what you do with them is it grounds you and how you apply that to your own life. So I go to do a story about COVID and I meet a family who lost someone. I hug my kids a little tighter and I make sure that I'm in the moment with them a little more. I meet someone who lost their spouse in a car crash and I make sure that I'm always driving safely and reminding myself not to text and drive, not to look at Facebook and drive, not to even at red lights. And it's a very, very tough thing. But even if I can get that one reminder into my head, then again, and for viewers, why do you tell these stories? I don't tell these stories to patronize these individuals or to make a show out of them. It's because if I can change one life, if I can get one more person to put the phone down, if I can get one more person to secure their firearm in their house, if I can get one more person to take a weather warning seriously, even just one family, that's it. You just change one viewer's life, then that's my job.
Wow. Absolutely, man. And I think what I was going to say is what's tough is finding the balance of sharing the perspective with your family members where they're like, okay, well, you don't have to be so melodramatic. And what I mean was because, like I used to say, well, it's not that bad. Nobody died today. Nobody got shot. We're all home safe. Okay, Dad, it's not all combat. I'm like, okay, maybe. But that's how I was seeing it. Nobody got shot today. Nobody got killed. We have all of our family members here. So finding the balance so that, okay, how do I convey this to the wife and kids, or how do I convey this to employees? And there's a balance in that. So
yes, and I would argue that that's why it's also very healthy and important to have a social life and to have hobbies. And one outlet that I found was I love playing ice hockey. No, I'm not very good, but I love being out there, and I love the skating, and I love the action. And then you find commonalities with other people, and those are, these are these are not luxuries. I mean, they're very, very healthy and important. And that's why, isolation is you want to get out, you want to get that sunshine. You want to, even if you're just taking a walk. I mean, it's how can you channel that energy? Go back again, that sense of self.
That's a great point. And that's why James is running the Army 10 miler on team straight out of Motrin.
I'll walk the 10 miler with you, or maybe run 2 miles.
That's our team. And for anybody who's watching, we have an official team straight out of Motrin for the Army 10 miler. That's the Lounge with Legend team.
I love it.
He's not lying. So sign up, Jonah, with us. Go up there in October.
I can run a little bit. I can run.
October 9th. That's our team. We're making t-shirts.
Okay.
And James also signed us up to do Mount Kilimanjaro with former guest Aurelius.
He keeps signing me up for things. I got to watch what I'm doing because he's actually causing me to take more Motrin than I need to. No, seriously, join in. And then, I just going back to what you were talking about. I mean, how do you like separate when you go home? How do you not take work home with you? You're always on. You're always on. You're never off. Someone's always watching you. I was joking around saying, that I knew who you were when you're at the gym. Well, there's other folks that know who you are when you're out here in public. So they're just waiting to catch you on camera doing something wrong. So, Jonah ran a red light today. I just filmed them. So, I mean,
Actually, I think for better or worse, because media has, proliferated so much, there's not as much of that. But you're right. And I mean, I haven't been on air here. I mean, a little bit, but in North Carolina, and, humbly, yes, I'm still getting recognized, and people have been very kind and supportive and just, thanking me for what I do. I think you recognize that you're always on no matter what. You're right. And so you have to be aware of your language. You have to be aware of your conduct, because you represent yourself. You represent the station. And again, you represent the industry. One journalist does something bad, it's going to reflect poorly on everybody.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to restore integrity, we all have a part in that.
Now, that's very similar to how we had it in the military.
Yeah.
We told, and we did a lot of training on this, is the private at a checkpoint represented the general officer, 200 miles away in a headquarters, because the privates are the one interacting with the locals, not the general officer.
Correct.
And so how we were interacting, those are the people that were really there. So how do we convey a message? Well, they're not going to memorize the entire book. No, they're going to be the ones who are memorizing. And what do privates and soldiers, even lower grade officers want to learn? Teach me the bad words in Iraqi. Those aren't the ones you want to learn. So we're always conveying those messages. One person represents usually the entire industry.
And no matter what, I mean, if let's say I'm having a tough day, someone comes up to me, I have to remember, first impressions mean a lot. I may never meet this person again. So if I'm not nice to this person, they may never watch, or they may tell someone and again, you never know who knows anybody. I mean, I could see someone in the supermarket, ignore her, and she ends up being the personal assistant to the lieutenant governor. You have no idea. So you want to, again, you just always have to be kind to everybody. I mean, that should just be the rule of thumb. And I'm just trying to be authentic when I'm on camera and when I'm off camera. And so no matter what, hey, you Jonah, yeah. Or they say, are you ABC, channel 11? I say, yeah, hi, I'm Jonah. Pleasure to meet you. Like you just try and, again, acknowledge them, validate them. And I think that goes a long way.
I was telling James, isn't that a Tim McGraw song? Always be humble and kind. I'm sorry, you're from the North. You wouldn't know. That's country music.
Well, the better question would be.
Hey, I like Alan Jackson. Okay. I've been to a Willie Nelson concert. Okay. Listen, I haven't been in the Northeast in like 15 years. Okay. I can start to have my draw. Okay?
Well, I guess the important question would be, though, hurricanes or Bruins?
Oh, hurricanes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you both now at this point, I guess, is they
no. Even living in Boston, I never liked Boston. Boston is a culture of hate. They hate the Yankees more than they love anything. They hate the Yankees. They hate New York more than they love themselves. That's not healthy. I can't stand Boston. Love you if you're from Boston, but
our Caps just got knocked out last week.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't want to talk about it.
Whatever. Pop in the DVD from when you won the cup. Okay, when you won the cup. Okay, you'll be fine. And the Nationals too. You're fine. Okay, pop in the DVD.
So that's why you got a sport reporting. So now you can still talk and support the teams that you really love.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have to be neutral and impartial with the sports. You can be very strict with who you cheer for. But
No, go ahead.
No, I was just, I really appreciate everything that you've done for us too, Marty and I, because, one thing that we've always been able to do is we could trust you, right, with the stories. Because a lot of people don't know you're putting a lot of trust in the reporter that's generating these stories for you, because they can make you look pretty bad if they really wanted to.
And that's, well, yes. And going back to, I think, the problems of the industry, sometimes they go into a story with a narrative they're already trying to fill. They have, let's say, the puzzle, and they're making they're trying to squeeze that piece into the puzzle. When I say, no, you have to let the story speak for itself. The best example that I have when I speak in classes or places, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and President Trump was I think he'd only been in office maybe 6-7 months, and he called this he was starting to communicate with Gold Star families, and there's one family in particular out in Zebulon, North Carolina, and the president had said, "Oh, listen, I'm so sorry for your loss. Oh, I hear you're going through a tough time. I'm going to give you a check for $25,000. I want to help you." Washington Post picked that up and reported how Trump never paid that $25,000. And so the headlines everywhere: Trump stiffs family, Trump cheats family, Trump breaks promise. Okay, well, I called the family and I said, "Did this happen?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you upset about it?" And they said, "No." And so my story was family not upset about, Trump. And they were, and right. Look, you can judge for yourself. Two things can be true at the same time. Yes, Trump made a promise. He didn't keep the promise. And the family is not upset or offended about it. Now, aren't both of those important parts of the story? Can't two things be true? And then you as the viewer can decide, look, they may not be upset, but I think that's horrible. Or, yeah, you're right, it's Trump. He doesn't know what he's talking about, whatever. And guess what? He ended up sending them the $25,000. And who do you think got the exclusive call? Said, "Jonah, I got the check. Here's a picture of it."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm of a belief that you just, again, you have to give the full context and perspective. Not saying one is bad, one is right, one is wrong, what is this, that. You have to give all the facts for people to then judge on their own. And that goes with war, that goes with the economy, that goes with taxes, that goes with healthcare. Here's the system of Obamacare. Here's what's true. Yes, costs are this and that, but it's also true that, whatever, this has helped so many people. The economy can be roaring, and people can still be struggling. I mean, again, you give everything and let people decide for themselves what's important and what their priority is in that story.
Yeah, and it's tough because we all have an opinion, and being able to find that line, it's tough, and that's being that. Finding that line is tough.
And being careful, because people are so in their echo chambers. And yes. I would say to our viewers out there and our friends, you've got to differentiate. You've got to make a division between news gathering and news analysis. Mm-hmm. People on TV talking about news, that's not news. So when you say the media does this, the media does that, the media is slanted. Well, if you're watching an hour-long program where they're literally talking about news, that's not news. That's not journalism. That's not news gathering. If you're watching a 30-minute broadcast, whether it's ABC, NBC, CBS, or you're watching your local news, that's the delivery of information. That's not commentary. That's not the same. So you've got to, decouple these things. I am not Sean Hannity. I am not Rachel Maddow. I am not Don Lemon. I am not Chris Cuomo. I am not any of these people. Like, we are news gatherers. That's what a journalist does. They gather information. We are the tool that goes and finds out information and delivers that information to you. And then you, in turn, again, what you do with that information is up to you.
Yes.
But it's my responsibility to vet that information, to gather that information, to put it in perspective and explain it in a way so that you understand what's at stake and why it matters.
That's what's key, because I've got, within my own family, we are on both sides of the fence. And so they're quoting, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So that is, yes, that's OAN you're listening to. No, that is CNN over here, or that is MSNBC. And I'm like, okay, stop. What you just need to do is find something as close to the middle as possible.
Well, no, just find the information.
Find
the information first. Then you can go let's sports. Watch the game.
Right. Yeah.
Or better yet, read the box score. Read the box score. Then you can listen to the commentary about the fouls, about this, about that. You know. But read the box score.
That's a great analogy. And that's where it's difficult to, because I remember having lived in Europe or lived in Iraq, during the war and what's going on. And then my mom's telling me what's really happening. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? No, this is not, nothing against my mom, but I'm just telling you, that's what the news.
We just lost a viewer. His mom just unsubscribed.
She supports us. She's one of the biggest supporters. But I'm like, no, it's not what's happening here. I'm telling you, it's what they're telling you through your channel. So it's just funny because.
And I think now more than ever, someone, my friend Karen Rotterman told me, about intellectual honesty and how that's a very important thing right now. And that is, and I truly believe that, and I thank her for that. And that has helped me in interviews, in my work. And I think for veterans listening out there, there's a lot of PC culture, and there's a lot of and look, political correctness is one thing, but also the political correctness of the area. Maybe you're working for a really conservative company and you're not allowed to say who actually won the election. But be honest. Don't pander to, be yourself. Don't tell them what they want to hear, because they don't. I would argue that the people you want to work for want you, the person.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want you who you are, then that place is not for you. So you have to be intellectually honest. And so for me, that has been very, difficult difficult and exciting, but again, very gratifying. So, they asked me about this, and I'm telling you all the answers I tell you right here. Or if we talk about diversity, it's about diversity in demographics and diversity in thought. And if we talk about race and culture, it's about many races and many cultures, and about, we have to have a collective foundation of understanding, and we have to acknowledge everyone. And we can't highlight a few and alienate others, and we can't appease one community at the expense of others. So we have to find the balance, and I think that viewers appreciate that and know that it's not a perfect balance, and know that it's an inexact science. But when the effort and intellectual honesty is there, that's where truth comes out.
Yeah, truth shall set you free.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, I think, and speaking of that, let's ask you the question. Do you want to set it up?
He always does a better job. I'll let him do it. I love it when he does it.
So we have talked a lot about truth and being, finding that actual, fair and balanced, and finding, the actual being truthful, So I'm going to ask you, what does true freedom mean to you, Jonah?
To me, I think freedom means responsibility. If we look back at the Bible, when the Israelites were first set free, what did they do? They built a golden calf. They were, totally just unruly. They didn't know what they were doing, because freedom and this whole idea of living without rules, it's untenable. It's unnatural. And so freedom means responsibility. It means pride. It means ownership. And I think freedom means opportunity and empowerment. And my freedom gives me the responsibility to recognize where we are, to recognize who came before us, and to recognize that the world is not created for us. It's for our children. And so everything that we have, I want them to have. I want to leave the world in a better place. And it's my responsibility, because of that freedom, to do my part to do good.
I love it.
That was a great one. I love that one. I was elbowing him. You couldn't see me because you brought up Jonah and the calf, because I've been notorious for bringing up the Old Testament for a lot of pitches.
To me, it's just the Testament, by the way.
Correct.
Correct. But yes. My mom taught me that a long time. My parents taught me that, and I remember because they were actually in the context of Iraq. Okay, they took down Saddam Hussein. They were free, and the place was kind of chaotic, and people don't know what to do with this newfound freedom.
Right.
And so freedom does mean responsibility, and it's not this idea of don't tread on me. Yes, there is some of that, but it's we are not just in it for ourselves. We don't just live here by ourselves, and so we're part of a collective community. That means, yes, there's absolutely personal responsibility for your health, but there's also things we can do to protect other people. Two things can be true at the same time,
Because freedom is about perspective.
Yes.
So, now this has been as epic as we thought it was going to be.
It was awesome.
And the best part is, we're just talking this. We didn't even get to the fun assignments, like interviewing Rudy Giuliani.
I know. Man, no,
because this is the substance. This is the substance. It's not about who you interview, what you do, who you cover, this is the substance. And people want, and if we've learned anything from the pandemic, what did we miss in our lives? Substantive interaction and content and personalities and relationships. That's what it is. It's not, yes, entertainment can only go so far. Yeah, it's great to see, a great Netflix show or, watch this or whatever. But it's this kind of, what can we learn? How can we make each other better? And otherwise, what are we doing? This is what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great. And like I said, we're going to have to all get together and do something live and in person.
I would love that.
I appreciate it. And we'll get back in the green room real quick to close out the show. We'll be
no problem. Can I invite people to just follow me on social media? Because I'd love
go ahead. Sorry, absolutely.
So it's the same thing. It's just Jonah P. Kaplan, which is at Jonah P. Kaplan for Instagram and on Twitter, and then Jonah Kaplan right on Facebook. So
and we're going to put it in the comments right after this.
Yeah, that sounds great. Because would love to interact with you. Would love to know your stories. And we'd love to see how we can all work together and raise awareness, because that's you talk about why we doing what we do for veterans. It's about raising awareness. People just and why does it matter? Who can we save? Who can we help? And what can we do to make more collective good?
Absolutely. Jonah P. Kaplan. Check him out. Doing amazing things. And thanks for all you do for the veterans and first responders and everything you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate everything. Thanks for having me on. The legends, brother. Right there, two of them.
Oh, man, guys. You're the legend, even though you're hooked up with this guy. Oh, man, what a great episode.
Wow. Yeah, once again, I know he's not here, but he's watching. Hey, thank you so much for being, a brother and a friend. Thank you. We looking forward to working together in the future. And anything that you need from Marty and I, just please,
Did you sign me up
reach
for
out.
something?
I just signed him up. So if you need something coverage on the 10-miler, we're Army 10-miler. Where you?
Well, yeah, he signed up. So
he's going to be on our team.
He's going to be on our
He just
team.
signed up. We got him on live.
Okay.
He's signed up for
We're
10-miler with us.
Yeah, we get him a T-shirt.
We'll get him a T-shirt.
All right. So next week we've got Michael Hunter.
That's right.
So we got Michael Hunter. We'll be in Orlando, so it's going to be recorded because I think James and I'll be landing about that time. So it's going to be recorded, and then after that we have Jessica Lopez, the Code Ninja. So it's going to be awesome. We'll catch you live in like 3 weeks. So awesome, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for our legend, Jonah. Follow him, Jonah P. Kaplan, on Instagram, and check him out on Facebook. And appreciate it. Be legendary.
You've been watching the Lounge with Legend show, countering the narrative that veterans are all broken misfit toys. Veterans are the lifeblood of American freedom. Serving in harsh situations, coupled with their training, have forged them into some of the most resilient and capable leaders in the world. And that's where we come in, celebrating the success stories, taking you on a journey of transformation from military to business. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back soon. But find us on Facebook at Lounge with Legend or at JTF214. Till next time.